Okay, so picture this. You wake up, total fog. You feel weirdly heavy, confused, and you realize there are tubes, like, hooked up to you.
Yeah, and you're in this room, right? But
Yeah.
it's round, no doors you can see, just this ladder going up.
Exactly. And there are two other people there, but
Hmm.
they're completely still. And the worst part? You remember nothing. Like zero. Not even your name.
It's terrifying. And then slowly it starts to click. You're on a spaceship. You're millions, maybe billions of miles from home.
And you're the only one left. The sole survivor. And somehow the entire fate of Earth is suddenly, well, it's on you. But how do you save the world if you can't even remember who you are?
That opening hook is just fantastic, isn't it? It grabs you immediately. That's the start of Andy Weir's big hit, Project Hail Mary.
It really is.
Mm.
And that's our focus for this deep dive. We've gathered a whole bunch of sources, reviews, bits from the book itself, author info, you name it.
And the plan is basically to unpack it all for you, give you the lowdown on the book's premise, how it fits with Weir's other work, why everyone seems to love it so much.
Yeah, get to the core ideas. Think of it as your quick guide to understanding this massive space adventure.
So let's start right back at that wake-up scene, because the sources really stress how effective it is. You're in this medical bay setup.
Totally. One excerpt mentions these creepy, spider-like robot arms and electrodes stuck everywhere. It just feels wrong, clinical, but really unsettling.
And that computer, it's your first, interaction, asking these really simple questions over and over.
Oh, yeah, the computer asking, what's 2 plus 2?
Yeah.
It's almost funny in a dark way. The main character, Ryland Grace, he can barely make sounds, tries to say, leave me alone, and it comes out like LRML Ellen.
And the computer just goes, incorrect, what's 2 plus 2 again?
Exactly. It perfectly captures that initial helplessness, the amnesia.
It really does. And as Grace, slowly starts piecing things together, remembering little fragments, the sheer scale of his situation just hits him.
He realizes he's not just on any ship. This is this ship, the Hail Mary, launched on this critical mission way out there.
And his crewmates, they didn't make it. He's alone, the only one left to, do whatever it is he's supposed to do.
And the whatever turns out to be huge.
Yeah.
The stakes couldn't possibly be higher, right? The sources make that clear.
Yeah, Earth is in serious trouble, extinction level trouble. The sun itself is dimming.
Dimming? How?
Because of this microscopic alien life form, they call it astrophage. It's literally eating the sun's energy.
Wow. Okay. So the Hail Mary ship, it was humanity's last shot.
Pretty much. A desperate gamble. And Ryland Grace, amnesia and all, is the one person left who might be able to pull it off. He has to save literally everyone.
So who dreams up a scenario like this? Let's talk about the author, Andy Weir.
Right. So the sources paint him as this former software engineer, but someone who's always been, deeply obsessed with space.
Like, seriously into it.
Oh, yeah. Relativistic physics, orbital mechanics, the history of manned spaceflight. Apparently, this is his jam. He knows his stuff.
And Project Hail Mary isn't his first rodeo. He wrote The Martian.
Which was massive, right? That book really put him on the map. Huge success.
He also wrote Artemis, though some sources we looked at mentioned it got a bit more of a mixed reaction compared to The Martian.
Yeah, so the pressure was definitely on for Project Hail Mary. Big shoes to fill.
And when you look at The Martian and Project Hail Mary side by side, the sources point out this really clear signature style Weir has.
Definitely. Both books put the science the hard science, right at the center. It's not just background noise, it drives the plot.
The problem solving is the action, using real science pushed to the limit.
Exactly. And you've got that lone protagonist again, facing impossible odds in a super hostile, isolated place.
But it's the voice, isn't it? That's what the sources really highlight. Ryland Grace, like Mark Watney in The Martian, has this inner monologue that's smart, determined, and somehow funny.
Yeah, finding humor in these absolutely terrifying situations. One source described Grace as maybe a slightly less foul-mouthed Mark Watney, which feels kind of right.
Huh. Okay, so the comparisons to The Martian are definitely there, and the sources lean into it. That solo survival thing, the science focus, the chatty narrative style, people recognize that.
They do, but what's really interesting and what the reviews we saw emphasize is how Project Hail Mary takes that formula and then elevates it or changes it up.
How so?
Well, first, the obvious, the stakes. Saving one guy versus, saving all of humanity from extinction is just a much bigger scale.
That's a pretty big difference, yeah.
And then there's the way the story is told, the structure. The Martian was mostly chronological, right? Following Watney day by day. But Project Hail Mary, uses that amnesia, so you get these flashbacks woven in. As Grace remembers, you learn the backstory, how the mission came together, his past.
Ah, so it creates reveals along the way.
Exactly. Sources say it leads to these great, wow, moments. You piece it together with him, it's clever.
Okay, that sounds cool. What else is different?
Maybe the biggest thing, honestly, and something multiple sources called out as a real highlight, it's not purely a solo mission this time.
Oh, he's not alone the whole time.
Not entirely. There's this buddy story element that develops. One reviewer raved about it. Another mentioned a specific character, Rocky, and called that relationship the beating heart of the novel.
Rocky, an alien.
Bingo! A competent alien, as one source put it. So it becomes this story about unexpected cooperation. It's not just one human against the universe.
Okay, that sounds like a major departure from The Martian. Cooperation across species.
A huge departure. It really changes the whole dynamic. It's about working together, even across, like, unimaginable differences.
Interesting. Let's go back to the science then. If it's central, how much science are we talking?
A lot. Reviews consistently say lots and lots of science.
Yeah.
Math, physics, astronomy, even microbiology with that astrophage stuff.
Is overwhelming, like reading a textbook.
Well, some early reviews did mention feeling a bit like that, especially maybe in the first half, like, whoa, okay, back in physics class.
Like that computer asking 2 + 2 sets the stage.
Right. But the general feeling from most sources is that Weir makes it work. He makes it entertaining. The science is the puzzle. Solving it is the action.
So you're learning stuff, but it feels like part of the suspense, part of the story.
Exactly. You're seeing science applied under the craziest pressure imaginable.
And the conflict isn't just man versus nature or man versus science problem.
Well, the main antagonist is definitely the astrophage, that environmental threat. But sources also suggest the story explores, maybe more subtly, the challenges within humanity itself when faced with something this big.
Which leads into the themes.
Right.
What did reviewers say were the big ideas?
Cooperation kept coming up. Selflessness, too. And human ingenuity, of course. But cooperation seems key.
I saw one source use a pretty striking phrase, cooperation porn.
Yeah. That one stood out. It sounds a bit much, maybe, but the point was about the book showing this really idealized version of humanity.
How so?
Like, faced with extinction, all the nations, races, religions, they just put aside their differences. Boom. Total unity. Working together on this one desperate mission.
That does sound idealistic. Does it feel believable in the story?
Apparently, yes. The sources suggest that within the story's context, it doesn't feel cheesy or naive. It feels, hopeful, kind of affecting, actually, like a counter-narrative to how things often are.
A vision of what we could be if we worked together?
Sort of, yeah. Highlighting that potential for unity against a common enemy.
And it's not all just science and themes, right?
Yeah.
People mention the emotional side, too.
Oh, absolutely. The humor gets mentioned constantly. Laugh out loud moments, even with everything going on.
Which sounds very weird, based on The Martian.
Totally. But also moments of real tension, suspense, nail-biting problem solving, and moments of introspection for Grace. Some sources even said parts brought them to tears.
So it hits on multiple levels. Intellectually engaging, but also emotionally resonant.
Yeah, seems like it. It connects with readers deeply.
Which explains the reception, I guess. How did it do overall?
Phenomenally well. Just looking across the sources.
Yeah.
It was a #1 New York Times bestseller, Hugo Award finalist.
Wow.
Popped up on tons of best book lists. Bill Gates recommended it, New York Public Library. Even got named a NYT Reader's Pick for the 100 best books of the 21st century.
Okay, so critical acclaim and popular success.
Mhm.
What were the common threads in why people liked it so much?
Readability was huge. People called it addictive, a page-turner, irresistible. Even with all the science, it was just fun to read, engaging.
The humor definitely helped there.
Sure. The humor, the suspenseful plot, the creativity of the sci-fi ideas, and the characters, especially Grace and his surprising partner, Rocky, people really connected with them.
Called it dazzling, brilliantly funny, a masterwork, high praise.
Extremely high. And you see it in the reader ratings, too, like on Goodreads. It's got a 4.7 out of 5 average from get this, over 147,000 ratings.
That's incredible. That kind of consensus is rare.
It really is. And its impact goes beyond just book sales. There's a movie adaptation in the works.
Oh, yeah. Who's involved?
Ryan Gosling is set to star as Ryland Grace. So yeah, it's definitely made a cultural splash.
Okay, so let's connect this back for you listening. Why should this book or this deep dive matter to you?
Well, if you're the kind of person who enjoys puzzles, who likes seeing complex problems get solved in clever ways, This book delivers that in spades. It makes hard science feel like a thrilling adventure.
Yeah, those aha moments, but with potentially world-ending consequences if they get it wrong.
Right. And it's also a story that celebrates intelligence, resilience, and that power of collaboration we talked about, facing down impossible odds by working together.
And obviously, if you loved The Martian,
Then the sources strongly suggest you'll find a lot to like here. Similar vibe, that Weir signature style, but with its own unique twists, higher stakes, and that really compelling partnership element.
anything else the sources highlighted as a key takeaway for experiencing it?
One specific thing that came up quite a bit was the audiobook, narrated by Ray Porter. Apparently, it's exceptional. Many reviews said his performance really elevates the whole experience.
Good tip. So even if you're not usually an audiobook person, maybe give that version a shot.
Worth considering, based on the buzz.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. Based on everything we've looked at, Project Hail Mary seems to be this really smart, funny, incredibly tense, but also surprisingly moving sci-fi story.
Yeah, it's grounded in real science, which is Weir's trademark,
Yeah.
but it's not afraid to go big with imaginative, fictional concepts. And it really hammers home those themes of ingenuity, survival, and cooperation.
Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on, something kind of sitting underneath the surface of the sources. The book paints this picture, maybe an idealized one, of humanity uniting against an existential threat.
Right, that cooperation porn idea.
So the question for you is,
Yeah.
if we were really faced with something like that, an actual extinction-level event, do you think humanity's ability to cooperate, like we see in Project Hail Mary, would actually win out over our history of conflict and division?
It's a big question. What parts of that story about setting aside differences for a common goal feel the most resonant or maybe the most hopefully plausible to you right now?